Okay, today we're going to do my top 10 books, and it's been a while since I've done this list, so I feel like a lot of the answers have changed. The last time I looked, I only did 5 books, so here is an updated list, and this is something I'll probably try to update periodically as my interests change, as the books that resonate with me change. But with that said, here is the list of books so that there's no surprises. I hope you guys can see these, but yeah. First book we have is Emerson's Essays, and I talk about Emerson so much, and it's simply because he is my favorite philosopher. He resonates with me the most, and he talks about individuality and what it means to be an individual in the best way that I've ever seen it talked about. And to Emerson, his number one message is that if you're yourself, nothing else matters. And what does it mean to be yourself? What he means when he says be yourself is live your life according to yourself. Live your life according to your own terms, not other terms that people put on you. Did you go to school because other people wanted you to go to school? Did you take these certain steps in your life because people pushed you down this way? Did you curtail your opinions because it was what was popular? Or did you forever hold your own opinion of yourself ahead of everything else? And that's really Emerson's central message, and that's why he resonates with me so much, because I feel like most of my life has been spent trying to find myself, and it's only through Emerson's essays, it's only through his writings where I found the courage to be myself more and more. And I think that's really something that, to a certain extent everyone can resonate with, and to a certain extent everyone needs. It's never been easier to be more of a conformist. It's never been easier to toe the party line and be a cog in the wheel and not stand out. And I don't even mean stand out for the sake of being famous or for the sake of being rich. I mean stand out for the sake of being yourself. Dare to be yourself. And that is what Emerson has taught me, and that's what Emerson can teach you as well. The next thing we have is my favorite book of all time. Still my favorite book. It's the best mix of a story with philosophical insights, with esoteric wisdom, and transcending any one doctrinal, dogmatic system of thought. And this book is really something special. A brief overview of this book, if you've never heard of it, it's called The Book of Mirad, and it was written by Khalil Gibran's best friend. The reason this book doesn't really get the attention it deserves is simply because, one, it wasn't originally written in English, and two, it was self-published, so it never really got any backing, any marketing, any sort of push by big industry. So it's kind of been a hidden gem since the time it was published. I don't remember when it was published, but basically the story goes, there is a man named Mirad, and he goes to this ark, and the ark is set out by Noah and his descendants to basically prevent the future fall of man, to basically stop men from sinning and losing their way, and preventing another great flood. And basically they lose their way, and ironically Mirad has to go back and teach them their ways. And it's super inspiring because it's really the breakdown of all organized religion, in a sense, and organized systems, and teaching you about what it means to be an individual, and teaching you about what true spiritual virtue is and true religious virtue is. And yeah, that's the best explanation you'll ever get from me on that book. But the next thing we have is The Power of Awareness. Neville is someone that's taught me how to be creative. I know Neville often gets grouped in with New Age thought people, but to me, his words are just inspiring for the fact that it teaches you to believe in yourself beyond anything else. And if you can believe in yourself, then you can do anything. That's really the truth of it. If you believe in yourself enough, nothing will stand in your way. And if you could really focus your attention and your time to something, that task will eventually fold. Everything you see was once first a figment of your imagination, then it has to be created again. And when you recognize that idea, then you recognize that the life you want is only separated by a series of thoughts, by a series of days as living as who you want to be. And that's really the secret. It's believing yourself to be worthy before you're worthy. Like, if you want to create something great, especially if you're an artist, you have to believe that you're already capable of it. Like, there was a time when I tried to make videos, and it was me saying, in a year I'll be good enough to do this. In a year I'll be good enough to get this amount of views or this amount of subscribers or this or that. And like, now I just believe I can do it already. Like I don't need the success of the world. I don't need the material possessions, the material success, the material indications that I am already that what I want to be. And that's really the secret to it. It's all about changing your self image so that you can change exactly who you are and who you appear to as the world, and things just boom happen like magic. The next thing we have is the archetypes and the collective unconscious. I could have chosen a lot of works by Jung. I really like the Red Book. I really like Psychology and Alchemy, but I think this one is the one I pull from the most. I think this one is the most interesting and the most fascinating, and the one that I see play out more and more in the day-to-day life. And Jungian archetypes are interesting because I feel like a lot of people don't really rip their information from Jung. They get these 12 archetypes and this and that, and it's like Jung never really put out a set amount of archetypes because the individual is so unique, the individual is so special, and we each see symbols differently, we each perceive things differently, and we have a few set hardwired things, but aside from that, everything is kind of subjective. But what I learned from the psychology of the unconscious was there's a set of archetypes that we all kind of aim for, and what you believe to be a hero is what I believe to be a hero. Maybe we see a different image, maybe we see a different picture, but we're all kind of shooting for these ideals. We all kind of, imagine people more as archetypes and not as the real people they are. And when you see the gaps of this, when you see the way that symbols can control people, and you can see this in real time, then you can understand why certain people act irrationally. You can understand because these images and these archetypes are guiding them, and they don't see beyond them. They don't see the bigger picture. They don't see exactly what it is that is controlling them. I think Jung said something along the lines of symbols rule the world, and what better symbols to rule the world than the idea that you need to be this, the idea that you need to be that. Think of the American dream. That is an archetype. That's the white picket fence, the comfortable life, the hardworking man, the beautiful family. Like, that's an ideal. That's an archetype that we all shoot for. And I think when we start to understand these symbols and start to understand that these symbols really aren't things to live by, they're things to guide us, then I think you give yourself more slack, and I think you are able to live a better life. This book also talks about the anima animus, the hero, the trickster. The trickster archetype is the most interesting because it explains why the Joker is one of the most popular characters and why comedians will never go away. And what the Joker archetype basically explains is that before you can become an enlightened master, before you can become the old man archetype, I feel like I'm just throwing these terms out here, but basically on your process of individuation, on your process of finding yourself, you have to be a trickster. You have to be a joker. You have to be willing to play with the darker sides of your nature before you can accept them. And think about the comedian that says a dirty joke that in any other context would get them in trouble, would get them, slapped across the face for saying something crazy to a girl, or, would get them beat up for saying something to the wrong person. But because they did it on stage, because they did it in that manner, they're able to get away with it, and they're able to hit a deeper and a darker part of our psychology to bring out enjoyment, to bring out laughter. And that's really what we do when we go on our individuation process. We play with our weakness. We play with our fears and the things that we are dealing with that we really aren't dealing with, we're running away from. And super, super interesting stuff. It looks very big, but it's not that big. There's a lot of pictures in it. There's a lot of symbols in it. And, if you can get past the very scientific, granular style, Jung says a lot of super, super fascinating stuff. But the next thing we'll talk about is Walden. Walden is a book that I think kind of gets a bad rap. It's definitely a classic work, but I think people just see it as a quack going out into the woods and living there for a few years and then saying that he found God. And in a certain sense, that's what it is. I mean, when you really boil anything down, doesn't it all sound dumb? Like we vote every 4 years for a president that spends $1 billion to make $400,000 a year. Like, doesn't that sound a little weird? Doesn't it sound a little fishy? But like, we can always boil things down and lose all meaning, lose all value. But what really Walden is talking about and what it's really trying to teach you is that you don't need material things. You don't need anything. You just need the bare minimum. And when you have the bare minimum, then you can appreciate the bare minimum. But when you have war, when you have excess, that's where all your unhappiness comes from. As Buddha said, all suffering comes from desire. And what this really means is that the more you want something, the more it eats away and the more it takes away from your appreciation for everything else. Imagine you have 10 cars and one just stops working. Is that something you can appreciate? Like, there's people in this world that don't have cars. You have 10, but you're angry because one of them broke down. And it's like, it's only when we don't have anything and we have that one thing that we rely on and it works that we can appreciate it. It's only when we really calm ourselves down when we can look at our life and we can say, I have a great family. I have a great support system. I have a beautiful girlfriend that loves me. I have so many people in my life that want the best for me. And it's like, I could continue to focus on everything wrong in my life because Lord knows everyone has things wrong in their life. Even the most perfect lives have difficulties. Even the most perfect people have troubles, if not more than me. And it's like, who am I to say that my life is bad? Who am I to say that I don't have this, I don't have that? Like, it's honestly, I wouldn't say shameful. I wouldn't say it's something to be angry at yourself about, but it's just something that you need to reframe. And that's really what Walden teaches, and I think that's really the beauty of it. And I've heard people criticize, oh, well, Henry David Thoreau only went out into the woods for a short amount of time and then lived in the city the rest of its life. It's like, that doesn't take away from the message of the book. What the book is there to teach you is that when you really apply yourself to appreciation and gratitude, then you can live a life of excess. But it's not excess of material things, it's just excess of happiness. The next thing we have is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien is interesting because I read this recently and I wasn't expecting to like it. But the thing that Tolkien does that other authors don't is he doesn't waste a sentence. You read Charles Dickens, you read John Steinbeck. Like, I personally don't like their style because they build the world, but it doesn't feel like it's for anything. It doesn't captivate me. It doesn't excite me. And maybe I need to read them. Maybe I read them when I was too young and can't appreciate it. But the way Tolkien builds the world, it's like you're living in a fairy tale. It's like you're living and you're getting a glimpse into a style and a way of living that has long since passed. And even the people in the world have a recognition for the beauty, the myth, the weirdness, and they are actively living in a myth being created, but they also have veneration for a myth that has already passed. And it's super cool to see the tradition. And the thing about Tolkien is Tolkien writes in perfect archetypes. He writes perfect heroes. Aragorn is a perfect hero. He is the man that was born with the noble line, failed his mission, gains the confidence, gains the weapon, and goes out and takes his birthright. And it's the same thing with Gandalf. Gandalf sacrifices himself for the sake of the company, comes back reborn. Sounds like Jesus, I don't know. You have Bilbo, you have Frodo. Like, all of these characters are perfect hero archetypes. Even Galadriel is the Divine Mother archetype. Like, it's really interesting to see these stories and see these heroes and these characters and have them be so compelling because it's very rare where a black and white story interests me, and it really just shows how masterfully Tolkien created the world and how masterfully he created the story and created the mythos and raised the stakes every single page that you turn. And it's really, really tremendous. And if you like the movies, you will like the books. The books are better, obviously. I mean, the thing about a movie is it can only capture what the director believed, but the thing about a book is that it can capture what every reader believes. And when you have a strong imagination, it strengthens the book that much more. And with that said, we'll get into another work that is very similar. This is a book I really just made a video about 10 minutes ago before I'm making this video, but I needed to add it to the list because I just finished it, and man, Dune is one of my new favorite books. I don't know how else to explain Dune aside from it has it all. It has political games, it has religious zealotry and idolatry, and it has a messianic figure that isn't really a messiah. It talks about the fallibility of our perception and what it means to hold someone in high esteem when they really can't ever live up to that expectation. And this is all interplayed with a very interesting background where there's these giant worms that people ride, there's these space weapons, there's these brutal fights, there's poisoning, there's, knife fights, it really is just, it has it all, and it tells the story in such an interesting fashion, and it keeps you on your toes. And the other thing is Frank Herbert is definitely friends with somebody who knows a lot about these more secret mystery schools, secret mystery cults, and basically is able to interplay this with all of this on top of everything else I just talked about. And basically it just makes a very deep and rich and mysterious novel that I literally, as I'm finishing this book, I had like 100 pages left. I ordered the next book because I was like, this is so good. I need to read the next thing. I need to see what happens in the next one. And, I'm excited to see where the series goes. I have no inkling of what's going to happen. Unlike Lord of the Rings, I feel like everyone knows the story of Lord of the Rings. But nonetheless, I still want to finish the series. But yeah. We have 3 more books. The next thing is The Gay Science by Friedrich Nietzsche. I hope I said that right. Someone got on me for saying Nietzsche wrong. I was saying Nietzsche. It's Nietzsche, apparently. I still am probably saying it wrong. Yell at me if I'm still saying it wrong. But I could have chosen a lot of books for the one I wanted to include by Nietzsche. I really like Das Buch Zarathustra. I really like The Gay Science, obviously. I really like Beyond Good and Evil. And what was the last one I read? I can't remember what it was, but super, super good. Honestly, I have an affinity for everything he writes because I somewhat believe that the Platonic ideal of forms is the correct way to view everything, almost the Schrodinger's cat phenomena. That's really how I view the world. And I feel like Nietzsche puts it the best out of any single philosopher. But the reason I chose The Gay Science is because it's Nietzsche at his most poetic. It's Nietzsche at his most playful. It's Nietzsche at his most inspiring. He talks about all of his main ideas. I think this is before his idea of the will to power, but you definitely see the first inklings of him talking about this. And what really struck me about this was the idea of the Übermensch, the idea of living your life according to your own destiny, living your life according to your own idealized version of yourself. And to many people, Nietzsche is someone that is very misunderstood. They associate him with like very bad people and very egotistical people and very nihilistic people. But to understand Nietzsche, you need to understand Emerson, who we talked about earlier. Emerson and Nietzsche were very similar, and Nietzsche said that we are brothers of the soul, meaning that the things they write are pretty much congruent. And what I take this to mean is that Nietzsche's Übermensch is purely the idea that if you embody your idealized version of yourself without succumbing to any conformity, then that's how we uplift humanity. That's how the world becomes a perfect utopia. It's not through, socialism, not through capitalism, it's not through communism, it's not through democracy, it's through the individual. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I also really love how he talks about the eternal recurrence in this book. And the eternal recurrence is perhaps his most interesting philosophical idea. And it goes hand in hand with the Übermensch, but basically it states that you must live your life as if you're destined to repeat it. You must live your life as if the exact atoms in the exact sequence, in the exact circumstances will repeat time and time again because time is endless, and thus you are destined to repeat the same exact existence, the same exact life, the same exact mistakes, and the same exact victories. And thus you need to take this responsibility and live the life that you want to live. Live according to yourself. Live according to a way that you would be happy to relive, because you're going to do it time and time again. And to me, I think that's one of the most interesting affirmations for life, and it's so true in the sense that like we oftentimes don't put the proper stakes on our lives. We oftentimes like to, get home from work or get home from school and go play video games and go do this and go do that. But, we are only given so much time on this world. And is that really what you want to do? And if the answer is to that is yes, then go ahead and do it. But I think there's something more. I think there's some more exploration. I think there's something that we're all missing. And when you live according to yourself and you live according to your own nature and you live according to your own sense of purpose and fulfillment, then the pursuit of that is worth everything. The next thing we have is The Trial. The Trial is my favorite work by Franz Kafka. Kafka is super interesting. Basically died and was not recognized at all, but 10 years after his death was the most popular writer in all of Europe, basically. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong about the time frame. I don't study dates like that, so if I say dates wrong, just correct me, and I still won't correct myself. But just know that that's just boring to me. But Kafka is super interesting for the fact that his writings are given the term Kafkaesque because they're almost horrific. They're almost Lovecraftian in the sense that the endings aren't happy and they're so subversive that things are going wrong, but they always go worse in a way that you don't expect them to. And to me, I find that super, super compelling. To me, I find that super, interesting, especially in regards to most of fiction, because most of fiction, most of movies, most of TVs, they tie everything up in a nice, cute bow, and there's no sorts of stakes. There's nothing that changes. The hero is the same in the beginning as he is in the end. Maybe someone died, maybe this, maybe that, but overall the world is the same. But in all of Kafka's works, it seems like the protagonist, if you even want to call them that, has their entire lives flipped on their head. And what it's really talking about is the nature of life and the nature of acceptance and the nature of kind of what the real world is. And it takes us out of these fairy tale like stories that we're usually accustomed to. Even in Shakespeare's tragedies, the Greek tragedies, there's almost a reset. There's almost a futility. Everything kind of goes back to the same, and everyone kind of died for nothing, and there's that in this sort of sense. But in Kafka's, it seems like there's stakes, and The Trial is about a man who is trying to find out why he was arrested, why is he on trial, and he basically runs into all of these different people who all influence the court in a subtle way, and it's basically a dystopian novel on the idea of justice. And is there such thing as justice when there's so many people who have their ego intact and ego that is damaged by the court system and the authority of the court being the entire ego of these people? And it really goes to show and questions like even in a just society there's no such thing as justice. And I think there's definitely some reality to this. Obviously Kafka exaggerates it to a certain extent, but masterfully done, super compelling, super interesting. You'll be on the edge of your seat the entire time you're reading it, and it really is a brutal tale with a brutal ending, and I think it's definitely worth your time. It was actually unfinished. He finished like what he finished of it, put it aside into a like a nightstand and left it. And when he died, he told his friend, I think his name is Max Planck, doesn't say it on the back of this. Yeah, no. Normally on his works it says the name of the guy, but basically, he puts it aside, tells his friend to burn all of his works when he dies, and his friend publishes them instead. And thank God he did, because we got a great work, and yeah, tremendous book. Last thing we have is Khalil Gibran. Obviously, I couldn't include Khalil Gibran. I wanted to put The Prophet, but I just read Sand and Foam, and I think Sand and Foam is his best work. It's about 30 pages of aphorisms, and each aphorism is more inspiring than the next. It starts with the idea of the impermanence, yet the permanence of things, and Gibran is someone that is just so capable of saying exactly what you thought your whole life, but that you could never put into words. And I think I do a disservice the more I talk about Gibran and I try to put him in a box. I try to define him and try to explain him. I think he's beyond explanation. But, if you've ever read The Prophet, great book, but Sand and Foam far exceeds it, is so much better and so much more compelling. And yeah, those are my top 10 favorite books. The list is very subject to change. It might change tomorrow, it might change in a week, but when it's a significant enough change for me to make another video, you will see another video. But yeah, right now this is the definitive list of my top 10 favorite books. Again, it might change at the second I stop recording, but yeah. Thank you for making it this far. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.